Have you ever stopped to think why the election of a new pope is done in absolute secrecy? Why are the cardinals literally locked inside the Vatican with no access to the outside world, as if they were participating in a sacred and dangerous ritual? What happens behind the doors of the conclave? And why are there so many mysteries surrounding this event that for many represents the succession of God's representative on earth? Welcome everyone to the Sagrado Mestre channel. Here, we explore the deepest secrets of the Christian faith with a reflective, symbolic, and somber look. If you feel that there is more to be discovered behind religious appearances, if your heart beats for mysteries that mix heaven and earth, dogma and silence, then subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Today, we will delve behind the scenes of the papal election, an event that has been taking place for centuries, but which continues to be shrouded in archaic rituals, vows of silence, and enigmatic signs. Perhaps you will never see the conclave the same way again after watching this video. The conclave is one of the most sacred and, at the same time, most enigmatic events in Christianity. The word comes from the Latin cum clave, which means with, a key. In other words, a locked, sealed place, and that is exactly what happens. When a pope dies or resigns, all cardinals under the age of 80 are summoned to the Vatican. They enter into total seclusion in the Sistine Chapel, where no one else is allowed to enter. They have no access to cell phones, television, newspapers, visitors, nothing. Can you imagine what it means to be completely isolated from the modern world for days or even weeks, with the spiritual burden of choosing Peter's successor? They eat, sleep and pray together, but they are not allowed to talk about foreign policy or their own desires. Only one subject is allowed, discerning in prayer who will be the next leader of the Catholic Church. But is that really all that happens? The atmosphere at the conclave is tense. The Sistine Chapel, famous for its frescoes by Michelangelo, becomes a true sanctuary of eternal decisions. The beauty of the paintings contrasts with the weight of responsibility. After all, there, between those walls, fallible men try to interpret the will of the Holy Spirit. How can we know if they are right? How can we distinguish ego from divine calling? And perhaps herein lies the true mystery, the tension between the human and the sacred, between power and humility, between desire and obedience, even before entering the chapel. Each cardinal swears an oath of silence. From that moment on, any leak of information is considered one of the Church's greatest crimes. There are records of severe punishments for those who break this vow. What is it that is so hidden? What kind of internal pressures are taking place? Are there lobbies within the conclave? Geopolitical interests? And you? Have you ever wondered if divine will can be manipulated by human will? Write in the comments. What do you think really happens within the conclave? But the mystery goes beyond politics. It touches on the symbolic. The Sistine Chapel was chosen to host the conclave, not only for its beauty, but for its symbolism. The Last Judgment is painted there. The cardinals are reminded at every moment that their decisions will be judged, perhaps not by men, but by God Himself. How does this affect their conscience? In the center of the chapel, a brazier is prepared. From it will come the smoke that will tell the world the result of the votes. Black smoke, no consensus. White smoke, a new pope has been chosen. But why use smoke in the 21st century? Why not just announce it with a microphone, like in any modern event? Because the conclave is not a modern event. It is a ritual. It is sacred theater. And rituals speak directly to the human soul. Smoke is not just a sign. It is a veil, a visible mystery. A whisper that something invisible has happened between men and God. Do you feel this too? This strange sensation that there is more than meets the eye, that the conclave is a divine performance, full of ancient codes that have survived. The test of time. When the new pope is finally chosen, he is taken to a small room, called the Hall of Tears. There alone, he puts on the papal vestments for the first time and cries, not out of vanity, but because of the immense weight that rests on his shoulders. How? Many cried there out of fear. How many out of regret? How many felt that they were being crowned and at the same time sacrificed? What is the Holy Spirit saying there in the most intimate silence? And once again, we ask, what really happens in a man's heart when he realizes that from that moment on he will no longer live as himself, but as a symbol of something eternal? Let us continue to unravel the hidden layers of this ceremony, because behind every detail there is a code, a gesture, a shadow. In the Hall of Tears, time seems suspended. There is no applause, no cameras, only silence. A thick silence, full of echoes, of the past and omens of the future. It is there, far from the eyes of the world, that the man ceases to be just a cardinal and becomes the vicar of Christ. But what really happens at that moment? Is it possible that the new pope is consumed by a fear that he does not dare to confess? After all, who is truly prepared to carry the weight of billions of faithful, the conflicts of the church, and the spiritual dramas of the world? Glory in this context seems more like a cross than a crown. Have you ever imagined being chosen for a mission you cannot refuse, where there is no turning back, no anonymity, no rest? Tell us in the comments. Would you accept such a call? After donning the white vestments, the new pope is led to the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. Outside, a crowd waits in silence, eyes fixed on the chimney and the reporters. Suddenly, white smoke rises, and a single phrase resounds like a spiritual thunder: Habemus Papam. We have a pope. But who really chose him? For many, it is the Holy Spirit who guides the hands and hearts of the cardinals. But for others, there is much more behind the decision. There is a silent game going on behind the scenes. Alliances, promises, exchanges of favors, political and ideological influence. Pure spirituality inevitably mixes with human nature. Have you ever wondered how many times the Holy Spirit was ignored in these elections? The votes within the conclave are secret. Each day, the cardinals vote up to 4 times. Each vote is written by hand and deposited in a silver urn. It is then burned with chemicals to generate smoke. But what happens between one vote and the next? What conversations change the course of the Church's history? Who are the papabiles, the favorites? And who makes them favorites? Some say that even before entering the conclave, many cardinals are already committed to silent alliances. Some regions of the world are pushing for representation, others for reforms. There are those who dream of a Latin American pope, others of an African pope. And at the center of all this, a question looms like an eternal mystery. What does God want? Can the cardinals really discern God's will? Or deep down, are they driven by fears, expectations, and personal interests? Remember, they are all men with pasts, ambitions, stories, men who must decide the fate of an institution that is more than 2,000 years old, in the midst of a world in constant transformation. In this context, the conclave becomes an invisible battlefield, a place where spirit and flesh fight in silence. But there is something even more disturbing. On several occasions, the smoke from the Sistine Chapel took a long time to clear. On other occasions, it emerged with a dubious grayish color, mixing the anxiety of waiting with a somber feeling of indecision, as if even the elements hesitated to announce the choice, as if the sky was in doubt. Do you believe that God allows wrong choices in the conclave? This is one of the most debated questions among scholars and theologians. If the Pope is elected based on divine inspiration, how can we explain corrupt, despotic, or heretical popes throughout history? Did God allow these choices to teach humanity something? Or were they purely human decisions disguised as holiness? These questions echo to this day. And perhaps you who are watching have felt this at some point. The pain of seeing religious leaders fail. The frustration of seeing the sacred being tarnished by human attitudes. The conclave, in this aspect, is the reflection of the drama of humanity. We want the divine, but we carry the clay of our nature. We seek the voice of God, but we are haunted by the sound of our own conscience. And yet there is beauty in this mystery, because despite everything the Church continues, the altar remains. Faith, even wounded, resurfaces. And the Pope, a paradoxical figure between humility and power, becomes the symbol of this eternal tension between heaven and earth. But is the Pope just a symbol, or is there something deeper behind his election? They say that after the announcement of the new Pope, he goes through a silent ceremony of acceptance, an intimate moment where he chooses his new name. And this name is not random. It carries prophecies, tributes, and often political intentions, disguised as holiness. Francis, John Paul, Benedict, Leo. Each name is a key, a spiritual password for the path that papacy intends to follow. Have you noticed how certain names reappear in history, while others are avoided? Why have we never had a pope named Peter VI? Why is the name Peter avoided, even though it is the name of the first pope? Is it superstition, reverence, or is there something darker? In the silence of the conclave, these decisions are made with fear, because each choice carries a destiny, and each destiny a price. At this point in the journey, the mystery deepens even more, because we are no longer talking just about politics or religion, but about the spiritual destiny of humanity. And if the Pope is Peter's successor, he is also the rock on which so many hopes are built or crumbled. Will the next one be a reformer, a conservative, a martyr? And you, what do you expect from a Pope? Write in the comments. What would be for you the most important quality in a spiritual leader? Get ready to dive even deeper, because there is a secret that has been kept for centuries, a feared prophecy, something that the cardinals avoid speaking out loud, but that haunts every papal election like a shadow that never dissipates. There is a name that runs through the corridors of the Vatican like a whisper, a name avoided, feared, respected in silence: Peter the Roman. He appears in an ancient prophecy attributed to Saint Malachy, an Irish archbishop of the 12th century. According to this prophecy, each pope would have a motto that would describe his pontificate. The list ends with the 112th, and the final one would be Peter the Roman, the one who would reign during the destruction of the Church and the Last Judgment. Coincidence or not, many scholars claim that we are getting closer and closer to the fulfillment of this prophecy. The current Pope, according to this count, would be the last before the final Peter. But who would this Peter be? A literal man or a symbol of a return to the origin, to the foundation of the Church? What if the election of the next Pope marks the beginning of a cycle that will culminate in the end? Do you believe in prophecies, or do you think they are just human projections, fueled by fear of the unknown? This is one of the greatest spiritual tensions of our time. We live surrounded by signs, but also by skepticism. And between these two extremes, many souls walk lost, searching for meaning amidst the noise of the world. In the conclave, the cardinals also carry this weight. They know that they are not choosing just one man. They are electing an era, a direction, and each choice echoes in eternity. Have you ever wondered if any of them feel the presence of evil during the vote? Are there invisible temptations, hidden forces trying to influence decisions? We are not just talking about political conspiracies, but about real spiritual battles. After all, if the Pope is the visible leader of the Church, he is also a visible target for all forces contrary to the light. There are discreet reports, almost erased from official history, of cardinals who fell mysteriously ill during conclaves, of torn votes, of altered ballot boxes, of inexplicable signs, and all these episodes are hushed up in the name of stability, tradition, and the appearance of sanctity. But the truth always finds cracks to breathe, and this is where we return to the essential question: why is the conclave so mysterious? Because it is not just a process, it is a mirror where the most influential men of the Christian faith are forced to look at themselves, at each other, and above all, at God. It is a place where masks fall, where silence screams, where prayer mixes with fear and glory with sacrifice. It is a sacred theater, yes, but not in the sense of empty staging. It is a theater where good and evil dispute every detail, where each vote could be the last before the end. And if all this seems dark, it is because the truth, when exposed, often frightens. But it also liberates. The beauty of mystery is not in understanding it completely, but in recognizing it, in respecting its layers, in realizing that faith is not only made up of certainties, but of questions that make us more human, more aware, more prepared for the sacred. And now I ask you, what would you do if you had the power to choose the next pope? Would you let yourself be guided by faith or by reason, by hope or by tradition? Perhaps, deep down, what is frightening about the conclave is not the secret itself, but the fact that it reveals more about us than about those elected. Because in every man locked in the Sistine Chapel, there is a mirror of humanity, with its falls, its ambitions, its prayers, and its contradictions. And in every smoke that rises to the sky, there is a collective cry that asks for direction, for meaning, for redemption. The conclave is, above all, a living metaphor, a reminder that true faith does not need spotlights but silence. It does not need certainties but surrender. It does not need a spectacle but a cross. And perhaps the greatest mystery is not behind the locked doors, but within each one of us. If you have come this far, I want to thank you. From the bottom of my heart, you are part of this journey. And now I invite you, share your vision in the comments. What do you think about the choice of the Pope? Do you believe that the next one could be the last? What is the role of the Church in a world that seems so far from God? Leave your comment, share this video with those who need to reflect on faith and the future of humanity. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now to the Sagrado Mestre channel. Here, the mysteries of faith are treated with reverence, courage, and depth, because the truth may be hidden, but it will never cease to shine.